Hi guys, my name is Christine, and today I'm talking about focusing on yourself and the importance of why you need to focus on yourself and stop worrying about what other people think, about other people's opinions, about other people in general, so you can just do you and live the life that you want. Because so many times we are stopped by our peers or our friends, or our family members, and we get all this kind of like all these opinions thrown at us about what we should be doing with our lives, when in reality it's absolutely no one's business but your own as to what you want to do with your life and what you want to achieve in this life. And sometimes you may have parents that have all these different expectations that they want you to do, when in reality, you want to kind of, you don't feel that, you're beating to, you want to follow the beat of your own drum, essentially, right? So today I'm going to be talking about the importance of focusing on yourself, how you can do this, so how you can really knuckle down and get beast mode activated, basically, so you can start achieving these things and living the life that you ultimately want. So when it comes to these kinds of things, the first thing that I ask people is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? What does that look like for you? What kind of lifestyle would you like to be living? What kind of hobbies do you want to be doing? What would you like your body to look like? How would you like to be dressed? What kind of relationships would you like in your life? What kind of area do you want to live in? What would your business look like, or your career look like, if it was the way that you wanted it to, if it was ideal for you, right? What kind of dreams have you, would you like to accomplish by then, right? So you got to figure out basically what those things are. And then the next step is, it's a simple thing, but it's a lot more complicated to apply, which is you have to work towards those dreams every day, especially those ones that are going to get you, the most, because let's say, for example, you have a dream of living in a certain kind of house, right? So that's good. It may be good to like look through like, houses and brochures and online and things like that. But, how are you going to be able to get that house? Those are the things that you need to focus on. How are you going to pay for these things? How are you going to achieve these things? Right? So those are obviously like your main priorities, and they're probably something to do with your career or your business that are going to help you get to these other things, right? So you got to figure out what those are, like what are the action steps that you can work on every day, because that's the point, right? You've got to be able to work on those things every day and try and find a way to get yourself to where you are now to where you ultimately want to be in about 5 years' time. So what's important about that then is that, you need to really knuckle down on what your main goal is, right? Really try and figure out what your main goal is. So your main goal could be something to do with your business, it could be something to do with the amount of money that you're earning, whatever it may be, right? So you got to figure out what that main goal is, okay? And there's a tip that Brian Tracy always talks about in like any talks that he does, and he often talks about that in some of his books as well. And that is, when you've found out basically what's the main goal, basically, that if you achieved it within the next 24 hours would have the biggest impact on your life. So for that, I think a lot of people would pick a money goal, like, oh yeah, if I was earning a certain amount of money, then that would eradicate, or that would help me fulfill, all these different problems, or help me fulfill and achieve all these different dreams. So it's like, oh yeah, if I had this certain amount of money, or if I was getting this amount of money, revenue from my business, that would solve so many different problems. And that's usually what is on the first everyone's mind when they think about, okay, what is the main goal that would solve all these things? Basically, what is the most important goal for me, right? What would most dramatically change my life overnight? So that's your main goal, basically. That's the most pressing goal. That's how you know that is your main priority. If it's the one thing that could really dramatically change your life, and that's the one that you got to focus most of your attention to. So what Brian Tracy says is that once you've figured out what that goal is, you got to write it down on a piece of paper. Like write down, okay, I need to be earning this amount of money each month, right? Or something like that. Or whatever your goal is. Because it might not be a money goal, it might be something else. But if that was the case, and is a money goal, or whatever goal it is, write down 20 ways that you can achieve that goal, right? And some of those ways might be things that you're already doing, but some of those things that you're going to come up with, because 20 is a lot of different things, right, are going to be things that are probably things that you haven't thought about before, because you've had to think out the box, right? So it might be like, oh yeah, maybe I need to get a part-time job doing this. Or it could be something like, oh yeah, you might just come up with a new thing that you could produce, like a new product or something like that if you have a business. It could be like a new way of making money or something like that that you can easily implement. So we're basically, when you're writing down these 20 things, you're going to have to think out of the box and really come up with creative ideas on how to achieve this goal, because 20 is a lot. And by the time you get to about like maybe 15, you might be really struggling to find the last 5. But it's usually in those last 5, and maybe even the last 1 or 2 items, so like item number 19 and 20, that you're really going to come up with like an amazing idea that's going to help you achieve this goal, because you've really had to think outside of the box. So that's a really good little exercise that you can do if you are struggling with achieving that main goal of yours and maybe you're a little bit stuck for ideas. So give yourself plenty of time to write down those ideas. Don't try and write them down really quickly. Really give yourself like maybe an hour or an afternoon to really think about those 20 things that you can do. And make sure that they're practical as well. Don't make them things like are far off in the future. Make them things that you can actually implement today, or can implement very easily, and not things that you're relying on the future to just bring you, right? Because it might be like, oh yeah, well, I could earn more money if I had a book deal. Yeah, but you don't have a book deal, right? If you don't have a book deal, then that's far off in the future. You could start writing your book, or you could work harder on your book if you've got a book, and that so that you can get that book deal, right? And work on that. But don't rely on outside things that need to kind of just happen to you, like winning the lottery or something like that. Because yeah, that would help you achieve your goal, but is that actually realistically going to happen? It may happen, but it also may not happen, because obviously the law of probability in lottery is very, very, very low. So when it comes to the law of probability then, make that work for you in your favor. And let time also work in your favor as well, because the law of probability, basically how I've seen it with what I do, like on YouTube, because I've got this channel and I've also got my YouTube channel. I know that if I keep on putting out content, right, keep on putting out videos on this channel and my other channel, that eventually I'm going to get more views, I'm going to get more customers, I'm going to get more clients, I'm going to get more people watching my videos, and therefore I will make more money from my business. And then as my business grows, then I can add more products, I can create better content over time, right? So I know that so that's kind of like how the law of probability is working for me. Like I'm using time and basically the amount of videos that I make to basically create that environment for myself. Because basically if you're basically pumping out content, like in this way, so let's say you've got a blog or you've got a YouTube channel or you've got a TikTok, like if you keep on making content and the content that you're making is useful to other human beings, then eventually one of those videos is going to stick, one of those videos is going to go viral, one of those videos is going to gain a lot of attraction for you, a lot of attention. And really, when it comes to those kinds of things, it's just a matter of time. So let's say you're in sales, right? If you have to do a lot of cold calls, right? Everyone knows who's in sales. Like, yeah, you're probably going to get a lot of no's, right? In fact, most of the time you are going to get a lot of no's, right? In fact, you will get mostly no's, right? But eventually, if you keep on calling people up, if you keep on doing those cold calls, you will get to someone who's going to say yes. Now, of course, there are ways that you can improve your sales skills to be able to get more yeses, but what really is going to work for you is if you keep on going, if you keep on making those cold calls, if you keep on trying to reach out to potential clients, and you keep on doing that on a consistent basis, you will eventually get a yes, right? You will eventually get maybe a really high paying client that may actually change your bank account for a good substantial amount of months, or maybe you'll get a consistent expensive customer who will change your life throughout the rest of your career if you establish a really good relationship with them. So you want to use time and the law of probability to your advantage. So time, obviously, you may have to do things consistently for a few years, right? In order to get those yeses and those successes. So basically, you got to figure out then, how can you use that for you and what your goals are? Because you might not be in sales, you might not be creating content. Perhaps you've only got like something simple like an Etsy page or something like that. How can you use those two things? How can you use time and the law of probability to your advantage, so that it's not just a matter of if it's going to happen and being worried and anxious that you're never going to be successful, but you see it as it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when it's going to happen, right? It is going to happen to me. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, it might even be next year, but it will happen eventually because I can do these things every day to help the law of probability basically in my favor, right? And put that in my favor. So those are the things that are going to really help you achieve your goals. So it's really important, just to give you a recap, to figure out where you see yourself in 5 years' time. Okay, and what's important about that as well is that you may not actually achieve everything on your list. You may not achieve everything that you want to in 5 years' time, but you will be a hell of a lot closer than those people that are not even thinking about these things, right? You may achieve some things, but you may not achieve all of them, right? So that's something that you need to consider as well and remember. So if it does get to 5 years' time, right, it's 5 years down the road and you haven't achieved a lot on your list, but you've done work consistently, you're still a lot further ahead than everyone else that isn't doing those things. So don't worry about that, right? If you set a goal for yourself and you set a deadline, right, and you get to the deadline and you haven't achieved your goal, what do you think the answer is to that, right? It's not give up. It's just simply move the deadline, right? It doesn't mean that you quit. It doesn't mean that you stop. It just means that you just put the deadline a few more years ahead. That's all that it means, okay? But you're still way better off than all those people that haven't done anything to go towards their dreams and their perfect life and the life that they want for themselves. Okay, so you got to work towards that dream every single day. That was my next point. And then figuring out what your most important goal is, and then do the exercise by Brian Tracy where you write down your most important goal that would change if you could achieve it within 24 hours, it would dramatically change your life. And then you write down 20 ways how you can practically do that and make sure everything on your list is something that you can actually do today if you wanted to. Right, and then you want to keep keep your list with you so you remember and refresh your memory about it, right? So you keep on looking at it so you can know which things that you can do. Okay, so and then of course the last thing that I went into was let time and the law of probability work in your favor, so that it's not a matter of if it's going to happen for you, it's only a matter of when. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.